Hello and welcome to I Learn English. My name is Jed. In this lesson, we'll be talking about modal verbs. First, I will explain in English e depois eu explico em português. So, let's get to it. The first thing to talk about with modal verbs is their name. What does it mean? What is a modal verb? A modal verb modifies a verb in some way. For example, if we take the verb go, saying I can go, or I could go, or I would go, or I should go, or I must go, all modify that verb of go in different ways. So it changes the meaning. And that's the first thing we should identify here with modal verbs is they're changing the meaning of a verb in some way. Next, let's talk about the formation of sentences with modal verbs. Modal verbs come before a base verb. So we can see from the highlighted area that we have a modal verb of can here followed by go. So we don't say can goes or can to go. We just use the base form after the modal. Now let's take a look at can, which is probably the most common modal verb. And what can means at its fundamental level is to be able to do something. For example, I can sing. It's terrible, but I can do it. I can do it. I'm able to do it. The second meaning is to be permitted to do something or allowed to do something. Let's take a look at an example of each one. I can come to the meeting tomorrow. I'm able to. Yeah, I can fit it in my schedule. I'm able to. Next, the second example. I can take the day off tomorrow since my boss gave me permission. So there's the second idea of being allowed to do something or having permission to do something. All right, now let's talk about could. Could is the past tense of can. That's one of its uses, is the past tense of can. Another usage is to show that something is theoretically possible. And finally, it's used for polite requests. So let's take a look at an example of each one. She could not go to the party yesterday because she was too busy. Okay, it's just past tense. Okay, she could not go. Next, I could learn how to play golf. It's theoretically possible. Maybe I could get lessons and go to the driving range, practice and train, and theoretically, I could learn how to play golf. Polite request, could you please repeat that? Okay, so those are the definitions and examples of could. Now let's talk about would. Would is used in hypothetical situations if certain conditions are met, like if it's possible, and it's also used for polite requests. Let's take a look at an example of each one. I would travel all over the world if I had millions of dollars. If those conditions were met, where I had a bunch of money and free time, then I would travel the world. Another polite request, would you please pass the water? So those are the two main definitions and examples for would. May and might are used to express possibility. And in American English, they're pretty much synonymous. I can't think of one situation where you must use may and another situation where you must use might. They're pretty much the same thing. And they express possibility and another way of using a polite request. And this one is generally used with I. May I is the most common construction. And some of you might be thinking, well, which is the most polite? What's the difference with these polite requests? May is probably the most formal. Would is probably a little less formal. And could is probably the least formal. Let's take a look at some examples. I might go to the movies tonight, but I'm not certain. You may or might want to think twice about that. May I please use your pen? Another polite request. So main definitions and examples for may and might, which again are basically synonymous in American English. Next, we have should and ought to. And these are generally used for polite advice, recommendations, or to express opinions. For example, you should see the new James Bond movie. It's really good. That's expressing my opinion. I'm recommending it to somebody. You should sign the contract before next week. I think it's a good idea. Again, expressing opinion and advice to somebody. Should and ought to are used basically synonymously in American English. Finally, we have must and have to. These represent an obligation, something that you must do, or it will have severe consequences or some kind of negative result. For example, you must breathe to live. If you don't breathe, you will not live. You have to submit your report by next week or you will be fired. So again, showing the extreme urgency and sense of importance that must and have to convey in the English language. Now we're going to talk about negative sentences with modal verbs, and they follow basically the same rules as to be. So if you've seen the previous lessons using to be in affirmatives and negatives and questions, then you will understand these rules and recognize the pattern that exists with modal verbs and to be in both negative constructions and interrogatives or questions. So let's take a look at some examples of negative sentences with modals. She can go, she cannot go, they could not go, I would not go, we may not go, he might not go, the people should go, the people should not go, the people ought to go, the people ought not go, he must not go, they have to go, they don't have to go. So those are the negatives. So those of you who have studied English a little bit or have some experience with English know that certain contractions exist within the modal verbs. And I've listed the most common contractions: can and can't, could, couldn't, would, wouldn't, should, shouldn't, have and don't have to. And for the modal verbs that are not listed here, we simply don't use negative contractions for them in standard American English. Finally, we have questions with modal verbs. And as I mentioned, modal verbs follow a lot of the same rules as to be. So their question formation is very similar to be. So to form a question using a modal verb, all you have to do is switch the subject and verb placement. So he can go is an affirmative. Can he go would be a question. She could go, could she go? They would go, would they go? We should go, should we go? There's one exception, which is have to. And have to is different just because it's two words. It's a little bit different, so we treat it as we would a question without to be. Like if you say something like, they have to go, the question would be, do they have to go? And just a little note, may, might, and ought to are generally not used in question form in standard American English. Thank you guys for watching this. I hope that it helped. Please feel free to type any questions, comments, suggestions, or ideas into the comment box below, and I'd be happy to get in touch with you. Now we will continue the class in Portuguese. Oi, gente! Vamos falar sobre modal verbs. E algumas coisas, ou alguns elementos de modal verbs são parecidos em português, e isso é bom. Vamos começar com o nome. Por que se chama de modal verbs? E o que tem que ver com modalidade? E tem algo a ver com modalidade, sim, mas eu prefiro usar a palavra contexto. Depende do contexto. Can go, could go, would go, should go, must go. Eles mudam o senso de urgência, muda a significância da sentença. E vamos olhar na formação. Formação é o modal verb, can, could, should, would, whatever, e o base form. E a gente já falou sobre base form com afirmativos e negativos e também com perguntas. Então, a formação é modal verb, depois base form. Não fala can goes or can to go. Simplesmente não existe. Nunca use. Can, geralmente, é tipo poder, tá? Para ter a capacidade de fazer algo. Tipo, eu falei como cantar. I can sing, é horrível, mas eu tenho a capacidade. Eu posso fazer. O segundo sentido é tipo permissão. Tipo, você está permitido fazer algo. Tipo, eu posso tirar um dia de folga porque meu chefe me deu permissão, tá? Esse é o segundo sentido de permissão ou... de permissão. Ok, could. Um dos usos de could é can no passado. Ok, isso é um uso, can no passado. Segundo, é para mostrar que algo é possível. Em teoria. É teoreticamente possível, tá? E finalmente, para polite requests. Exemplo, she could not go to the party yesterday because she was too busy. Passado. I could learn how to play golf. É possível. Tipo, se eu fiz aulas e peguei um treinador, I could learn how to play golf. E finalmente, could you please repeat that? Que é um jeito educado de falar hã? Que não entendeu. Depois temos would. E would é tipo condicional. Isso é tipo, se eu tivesse, eu faria, tá? Então, para situações hipotéticas, se as condições são certinhas, tá? Se é possível. E também para um polite request. Exemplo, if I had, I would travel all over the world if I had millions of dollars. Ok? Eu viajaria se eu tivesse muito dinheiro. And would you please pass the water? É outra maneira, até mais educado, de falar give me that. Tá? Ok, vamos falar sobre might e may. E eles expressam possibilidade. E são iguais. Não existe, tipo, tem que usar might aqui, tem que usar may aqui. São sinônimos. Em inglês americano. E may também pode ser usado para polite requests até mais formal. E geralmente é com may I please. Could é mais educado que so, give me that. Would é um pouco mais formal que could. E may é até mais formal que would. Exemplos. I might go to the movies tonight, but I'm not certain. E a gente não usa subjuntivo. Talvez eu vá, ou talvez eu vá. Vocês podem me corrigir, mas não temos esse subjuntivo em inglês. So, I might go to the movies, but I'm not sure. I'm not certain. You might want to think twice about that. And may I please use your pen? Ok? Um jeito de pedir numa maneira educada. E agora temos should e ought to. E eles são usados para dar opinião, dicas, recomendações, coisas assim. Tipo, you should do this, you should see this movie, it's really good. You should look for a job to make some money. Para recomendações, conselho, dicas, coisas assim. A gente usa should ou ought to e são sinônimos. Finalmente, a gente tem must e have to. E geralmente são sinônimos. Mas se alguém botou uma arma para minha cabeça, eu falaria must é mais urgente que have to. Porém, os dois são you have to do it. You must do it. Primeiro exemplo. You must breathe to live. Você tem que respirar para sobreviver, né? You must breathe to live. You have to submit your report by next week or you're fired. Mostrando que se você não faz essa ação, vai ter uma consequência grande. Tá. Agora vamos falar sobre sentenças negativas com os modal verbs. E são, geralmente, as regras igual das regras com to be. Tá? Então, modal verbs pode trocar sujeito e verbo igual to be, como eu já falei nas lições, nas aulas sobre afirmativos e negativos e perguntas. Então, seguem mais ou menos as mesmas regras. She can go, she cannot go. They could not go. I would not go. We may go, we may not go. He might go, he might not go. The people should go, the people should not go. The people ought to go, the people ought not go. He must go, and quase ninguém fala ought not. Talvez na Inglaterra, Austrália, mas aqui nos Estados Unidos nunca falei ought not. He must go, he must not go. They have to go, they don't have to go. E lembra que isso é diferente porque estamos usando have. E quando usamos have, tem que usar o verbo auxiliar. E para quem já estudou um pouquinho de inglês, imagino que está pensando, Jed, e que tal com as contrações? Sim, tem contrações. Alguns são bem comuns, tipo can, can't, could, couldn't, would, wouldn't, should, shouldn't, have to and don't have to. E os outros não têm negativos. Em inglês americano. Perguntas com modal verbs. As regras são iguais que sentenças com to be, tá? Então, he can go, can he go? She could go, could she go? They would go, would they go? We should go, should we go? Tem uma exceção, que é have to, porque não é um true modal verb, porque tem duas palavras, have to, então a gente trata esse modal verb um pouco diferente, como uma sentença sem to be, tá? E a única notinho aqui, may, might, and ought to, não usam como perguntas em Standard American English. Tá, então muito obrigado, gente. E qualquer dúvida, pergunta, pode digitar no comments box. E bons estudos.